Hello, listeners out there. This is Ryan O'Halloran, VP of Security Strategy here at Imbalance IT, bringing you the first chapter in a series of the Balancing Act podcast on the principles of adaptive defense. Adaptive defense is an Imbalance IT framework for building security programs that continuously evolve, adapt, and respond to the speed of modern threats in an AI-driven world. It's going to be a great episode today as I have with me Imbalance Field CISO David Malcom. David, as always, great to see you.
You too, Ryan.
Let's jump right into this thing. What do organizations need to be paying attention to in today's world? I know that you work with a lot of organizations on cybersecurity. What's your biggest concern when you look at how companies are running their security program today?
Honestly, it's the gap between activity and protection. So most organizations, they can show you a long list of things that they're doing, activities like they're doing patching, they're scanning, they're doing their phishing campaigns, awareness training. But when you ask them if they're actually better protected than they were last year, they really don't have an answer to that. They've stayed busy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they've better protected themselves. So this is the exact problem that we're looking to solve through adaptive defense.
Understood. So help me understood, why does that gap exist? Why do these programs stay busy and feel like I should be okay, but can't really measure how effective or secure they really are?
Yeah, I'd say there's three reasons. So first of all is most security programs are built around compliance calendars. So not the actual threat landscape. So you do your annual penetration test, your quarterly vulnerability scans, your annual risk assessment. It's all on a fixed schedule, no matter what the threat landscape looks like that week. Secondly, the metrics that security teams are using to report on their program are activity based. How many vulnerabilities you closed, how many alerts you reviewed. Now, again, these tell you how busy you were, but they aren't outcome based metrics that tell you if you're actually reducing risk based on those activities that you're performing. And finally, the controls haven't changed. We're following the same methodologies, the same frameworks that we followed for years. And unfortunately, these frameworks are no longer good enough in the age of the agentic adversary, and attackers don't operate on our schedule.
I couldn't agree more. One of the things that I think about constantly is, even if you take the historical what good looks like, which is the NIST cyber framework or ISO or SOC 2, whatever lens you want to look at it on, and you add even the more modern AI requirements, you're still not measuring performance. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's missing is, even if you do measure performance, is your performance nearly as good as your adversary? And I don't think that we're presenting how good the adversary is and measuring up the way
Hmm.
that we really should, you know? So in my mind, it's like, and then maybe tell me if you agree, we're essentially running a static defense against a dynamic threat. And unless we get to dynamic defense, we really can't compete. I mean, is that a fair way to put it?
I think that's a great way to put it. There's no steady state in cybersecurity. Attackers are constantly in a state of change. They're changing the techniques they use to get into your network. They're targeting different entry points, different vectors. They're exploiting whatever capability is most easily acceptable, most exposed right now. And security programs are anchored to last year's attacks. Adaptive defense is Imbalance's answer to that problem. It's a framework that aligns your security posture with real world threats that organizations are facing today, and not aligned as much to those compliance activities that we've anchored our calendars in the past.
Right.
That's the best way I think to put it, is really like we're not in a steady state environment. Like our threats that we were thinking about 6 months ago are completely different than threats that we're looking at today. I mean, if you said agentic AI to someone a year ago, they probably wouldn't know what you were talking about. Now
Right.
it's one of the top risks organizations are facing. And
Yeah.
most organizations haven't done anything, in response to that.
Yeah, the goalpost is moving so fast. I look at the CrowdStrike report, or some of the other data that's out there, And then the breakout times, cut itself in half again. And if you look at now, even between those reports, how many hundreds of percent these attacks go upward and how different the techniques in that are changing, they can't even keep up releasing the vulnerability scores anymore in CISA.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So, you know, I definitely can see and feel, what you're describing. Compliance and security, I think a lot of security practitioners know were never the same. Never the same. It was always, hey, you're doing something some way and you can prove it so that there's material evidence associated. Being secure was always uniquely who you are as a company. Now it's just that gap, I think, is just further and further and further away. And it actually needs to come closer together than it needed to before. And there's these forces here that really make it interesting. So
Yeah.
let's get into it. What is adaptive defense and its core principles or modules?
Yeah, I really like how you put that. I mean, as far as the difference between security and compliance, and it does feel like that gap is wider than ever in a time when they should be closer than ever, right? Like I would
Yes.
say if you look back 12, 15 years ago, you know, security was compliance. You passed the test, you got your certification. That was what the organization cared about. But the stakes are too high now in this world that we're in now, and this digital world with AI powering everything, both the activities that we're performing to make our business more effective and the activities that attackers are using to make their businesses more effective. So adaptive defense is a framework to help organizations stay ahead of security threats in an era where AI continues to rewrite the rules. So traditional security just cannot keep up in an environment like that. What adaptive defense is not, it's not a product. It's not a single technology. It's a philosophy and it's a methodology for building security programs that continuously evolve, adapt, and respond to the speed of modern threats. So for decades, we've operated on a simple assumption. You build strong walls, you check compliance boxes, and that means you're protected. That worked when threats moved at human speed and you could measure attacks in days or weeks, not in hours or minutes like we do today. So that's the world that we're living in now, where AI driven attacks can identify vulnerabilities, craft targeted phishing attacks, and move laterally through an environment in minutes. Attackers are using AI to automate reconnaissance, to generate deep fakes, to poison data, exploit misconfigurations at a pace that traditional static defense can't keep up with. So we've taken three principles, core principles to adaptive defense. So the first one being continuous compliance, not point in time auditing. So your security posture is not something that you should just measure once a year. Adaptive defense establishes continuous visibility across identity, data, applications, AI systems, and security operations. So you know your risk posture in real time, not from a report that's produced 6 months ago. So we're giving you a view into your capabilities and how they're performing today based on the tooling and the methodology that we use. So it's making your compliance relevant to that day, not the point in time of when you needed to be compliant for an audit. Secondly, like I mentioned, this isn't a product. So it's consultant led and technology enabled. We do not lead with products as an as a security organization at Imbalance. It's just simply not who we are. We lead with expertise. What makes us us is that our security practitioners have sat in that CISO chair. They've lived that life. They've had those responsibilities. They've carried those burdens. And we lead with that experience. Every engagement, it starts off by understanding the client's unique environment. We don't treat everyone simple. We know people have different problems that they need to solve for, and we treat our employees that way in the way we approach assessing their environment, understanding their tolerances for risk. So again, some organizations may be willing to accept some risks that other organizations will not. So we want to understand what the organization's tolerance is, and then finally their business objectives, because your security program is not going to be successful unless you align it with your business objectives. If your security program gets in the way and prevents your business from meeting its objectives, security is going to go away. I mean, people are going to find ways around it. So we have to ensure that we're enabling the business as well when we're also securing it.
I love
So
that.
yeah, and then it's the technology. That's when we bring the technology in to actually power and bring to life the recommendations that we developed as we assess that client's environment, identified where their risks, where their weak spots are. So the conversations we have are always about outcomes, not about tool sets. The second pillar I'd say is we take a phased approach with continuous feedback loops. So what I mean by that is every pillar of adaptive defense follows the same methodology: assess, remediate, protect, and evolve. Each phase feeds into the next one. We define the gap between your controls and the capabilities needed to combat your attackers moving at machine speed. We introduce AI and automation to your operations to remediate that gap and provide you with enhanced protection. And then finally, the lessons learned in remediation improve the next assessment that we do. So threats are detected in real time, and our governance model continuously gets refined the more we run those assessments. So we assess, constantly, we're remediating constantly, hopefully protecting constantly, and evolving based on everything we learned from those four activities. Security gets stronger over time, not weaker.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I can definitely, I don't mean to put this coarsely, but, a snapshot of your inventory, even on a quarterly or a monthly basis is not where we need to be. And I think at the same time, these people that are addressing it as the Department of No are in the wrong too. If you're not using credits right now to explore this technology, I'm genuinely concerned,
Yeah,
literally genuinely concerned about you if you're in this industry and someone is disabling your use or not enabling your personal growth using AI. And, in order to do that, we have to catch up a lot of things that have needed to be fixed for a long time, but are now, to your point, pressuring problems at a different level than they ever were before. So tell me this framework, right,
mhm.
which you're describing, do you feel that it's more for the large enterprise or is it flexible also for the mid-market to use? Because obviously we're moving from that managed state, if you will, where there is a regimen, there is a discipline, into what used to be almost too good with the adaptive phase where it was always getting better. And the feasibility of doing that with the technology we had at the time was impossible. Now, not just cleverly as a name, we need to be at that adaptive level, as
Right.
the industry would describe it,
Mhm.
as kind of table stakes, or at least be in the path of getting there, knowing it's going to take a little while and nothing else is slowing down, right? So tell me about this. Who can use it, and what is a concrete, example maybe of what the relationship looks like with the clients?
Yeah. So I would say it scales to both. The framework principles are universal and can be applied to any organization really, regardless of their size. Any company would benefit from the controls that are tested vigorously, that that we come to them with an expert-led engagement that informs your security model, your investments and capabilities, and allowing you to constantly adapt based on your environment. So it doesn't matter the size of the organization. What would change is the scope and the depth to which we implement the principles of adaptive defense. So for a mid-market company, we might apply adaptive defense to like three or four of their highest risk domains, like let's say identity, endpoint, and cloud, for example. But for a larger enterprise, we would want to run this across their entire security program. So all
AppSec,
domains, exactly,
governance.
AI, yep. So we'd want to cover all of the domains, but the framework is the same. The application is sized to the client.
So sum this all up for me for someone that's listening, maybe that doesn't have a security background. Obviously, we're appealing mostly to that listener, but if you didn't have that background and you're trying to share kind of these principles in a sentence, what is adaptive defense to you?
So Adaptive defense is a security framework that keeps your defenses synchronized with real world threats. It's not built around compliance calendars. That way, you know your security program is always working on what matters the most to you at that specific point in time. So I just think about the evolving threat landscape. We've been using that term for years, right? And that, annual risk assessments aren't good enough. It's now gotten to where like a monthly risk assessment wouldn't even be good enough. By that time that the exploits already gotten out. So we've had to build a framework that enables you to feel protected in that moment, knowing that we are facing threats that are machines coming at us at machine speed.
It's
So
a
to
path
combat
path
that,
to getting a fair fight against your attacker.
it's the only way, right? I mean, we're
Right.
basically fighting AI with
You
AI.
wouldn't go to a gunfight with a knife, but basically that's what we're doing out right now. And you need to save up, buy a gun, get good at using the gun.
Yeah,
Right.
like
All these other things, like we got to go get our Ford card, for lack of a better analogy.
that's a really good way to put it. And like you said before, I mean, you would think that this is something that organizations are on top of at this point, but
They're
it's
not,
just
though.
amazing how many just have not enabled their employees through using AI and understanding how much more effective they can become at their jobs by using AI, how much better informed they can be, how much better decision making they can do with everything that's available to them through AI. Yes, it has its risks that we have to control when we roll it out. We have to have governance around it, but it's astonishing to me today. Think about and to talk to the number of organizations whose AI governance strategy is to disable it. Like it's beyond me that there's still organizations that are in that state.
Fair. So, Dave, last question for you. For someone who thinks this is adaptive defense is relevant, right, to the situation they're in, if they wanted to start a conversation with you or with Imbalance, what would that look like?
Yeah, I would say, the best way to do it is just sit down with us for 45 minutes. That's all we're asking for is a 45-minute commitment. And we'll sit down with you, walk you through the threat landscape, walk you through what the threat actors are actually targeting in organizations in your industry, map that against your current security posture, and provide you with an honest assessment of where adaptive defense would have the most impact. We're
Gotcha.
not going to pitch you any tools. We're not going to pitch you products. We're not going to demo any projects. This is a practitioner conversation. So it's
Starts with
consulting
discussion.
led. Yeah, it's a discussion. We're not coming to you with a product to solve your problems until we actually fully understand what your problems are. You can reach out to me directly. You can reach out to Ryan. You can reach out to our fantastic new Imbalance website to contact us and ask for a 45-minute security briefing. This is no cost to you. We will sit with you for 45 minutes, talk to you a little bit about more in detail about the components of adaptive defense and identify where in your organization, in your security organization, your weak spots might be or where the points of necessary investment are to get you to where you are better aligned with your adversaries from a defense standpoint.
I like it. We're curious and motivated to help. So, David, thank you as always for your time today. As David said, we can help you navigate today's evolving landscape with adaptive defense, whether that's continuous compliance or these consulting-led engagements, even phased implementations with continuous feedback, whether it's a no-cost briefing, a more detailed focus assessment, or just an ongoing partnership, right, to keep us all in sync. We got you covered. So reach out to us today at www.imbalanceit.com to set up a discussion. And until next time, thank you for listening.
Thanks, Ryan.